who's a photographer and also a competition judge. So welcome, Jane. A little bit about her. She's been shooting images since she received her first Brownie camera at age 11. And she was as an undergraduate student in architectural interior design at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York. She shot with a medium format 2¼ Minolta twin lens reflex camera, a handheld light meter, and then learned to develop film and make black and white prints. After she received her BFA from Pratt, she practiced design in New York City, traveled several times to Europe, and then moved west to study instructional technology and multimedia in graduate school at San Francisco State. This led to work in writing, shooting, and editing instructional training videos for the Army and the Navy, as well as creating and delivering technology and management programs for the corporate world. She started using digital equipment in 2004. Her work has been accepted into jury shows throughout the San Francisco Bay Area, and she has exhibited and sold her prints in local galleries and establishments. In addition to exhibits, her images have been selected and published in the Photographers Forum, which is a magazine for the emerging professional, the Best of Photography 2014 and 2017, and the IPA International Photography Awards 2015 and 2020. In addition to her fine art photography, she shoots weddings and events with her photographer, musician husband. And she also judges photography competitions and exhibits. So, Jane, I think there's a place on our photo entry where I can put in your website. If I can do that, would you like me to add that information?
Oh, sure.
Sure. Sure. If anybody wants to check out your work.
That's great.
So, and as far as her philosophy goes, she believes it's important to consciously select visually interesting subject matter with appealing compositional elements, and to shoot at the best time of the day to portray the image, using the best technical parameters to capture the image and tell the subject's story, to capture the subject's essence, all while demonstrating a personal visual style or signature that sets your work apart from the work of others. She also acknowledges that evaluating and judging photography and art is subjective, but she believes there are certain universal aesthetic principles and guidelines which apply to all artwork. So again, welcome to, and then Doug's going to share some of the images that Jane sent to us of her own work before we get started. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have any comments about any of those, then feel free to jump in.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
A toucan in Costa Rica.
Oh.
There are many toucan types in Costa Rica.
Just tell Doug when you want him to go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, okay. This was a fire fashion show in Oakland. Really unique. Every piece of fashion was bizarre and had flames coming out. So at a place called The Crucible, which specializes in things like blacksmithing and anything that has to do with fire. Next. I used to live in Castro Valley down here, and Castro Valley has a place called the Rowell Ranch Rodeo. And it was always fun to go to my local rodeo and photograph riding bulls and horses rounding the barrel. So that's what this was. This was the horses coming into the Rowell Ranch Rodeo that I just did some creative treatments and colorings on. Next. Okay, this is a travel shot from Varanasi, India, and this was a special offering of one of the priests, the Hindu priests, to the various gods of the Ganges River. Next. Okay, during that trip, we went to the excuse me, Taj Mahal, and we went inside. The outside is wonderful, and it's right by a river. This is the front of the Taj. The sides look different. And inside, I was a little disappointed because you can't really see that much. It's a mausoleum, and it's all grilled and graded off, so you can't see the crypts of the people. Next. Oh, this is a landscape shot in Yellowstone during the winter, obviously. Up, I'm trying to think what I was near Minerva, the Minerva feature. I can't remember what it's called, but it was just a sunset and a lot of steam because of the geothermal going on. You have the cold and the hot and the mist from the geothermal. And this river never freezes, no matter how cold it gets, because of the geothermal stuff. Next. Okay, this was a shot of let's see, that's the Salesforce Tower, I think, disappearing into the sky, and a very interesting structure on the right side, just downtown San Francisco. And this was just me playing with some creative stuff. It's called, I forget what I call this. Moving through the body, I think. But it looked very amorphous, like cells, and so that's why I said something like moving through the body. Next. This was the Crucible fire show again. These guys don't have any fire on them, but you can see there's smoke around them. And somebody had just come through on the walkway, and they did some interesting acrobatic things on the runway. Next. This was in Sri Lanka on that same trip that my husband and I took to India. And we were at a temple called the Temple of the Tooth. And everybody was buying flowers as offering to the dead folks. So this guy held his lotus flowers up really high so that they wouldn't get crushed in the crowd. Hundreds and hundreds of people just moving along together. Next. This is a white-faced capuchin monkey with her baby, and that was in Costa Rica.
And that's the last of them, Jane.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay, so what we'll do now, Jane, is there are 50 images, and
Right.
Doug's gonna scan through them about three to 4 seconds each, just
Okay.
one time through, and then we'll go back and I'll read the titles and you can give your comments.
Okay.
Okay, that's the last one.
Okay,
Okay, ready to go?
sure.
Washington Beach.
Okay. Now, I will comment that it's bright on my screen, and it could just be my screen that's showing these extra bright, but it does look a tad bright, and it's a nice sky. I get a nice span of the beach. I'm glad there are some people down on the beach that give a sense of scale of how large these rocks are. These sea rocks are really, really big. I think for my taste, the sky is just a tad oversaturated. I might bring the cyan down just a bit. And I'm also would perhaps, I realize the big sea rock with the trees in the ocean is in the distance, but I might just burn that a little bit because it looks a little flat. The other sea rocks along the beach are very attractive and have a lot of nice texture. Also, you might consider some different cropping. I don't know how much the extra branches on the far right side add. I realize you don't want to crop out those trio of sea rocks. So maybe clip that a little bit. And also on the far left side, there's some branches that are sticking in the bottom corner that could be cloned out because you go to that. So I think that's it. Just some suggestions. Next.
Oh, Jane, you need to give a score.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you guys do that. And this was the Washington, which one?
Washington Beach.
Okay, I'd give it a 10.
Mussel shells with barnacle. Pardon me, mussel shell with barnacles.
Okay. For me, I find this very appealing because I'm getting such a close, tight look at a shell with so many little shells and barnacles on it. It's pretty subtle. The tones are not real vivid, but they look to me quite natural. I'm really enjoying the patterns of the water swirling around it. The extra little bubbles add extra bonuses. There are some glints from the sun. That's kind of natural. I don't know whether I'd clone them out. You could try a version where the white glints of sun on the left side and on the top were cloned out, but I don't know whether that would really make a significant difference. And the only other thing I would do perhaps is just crank the contrast just a hair. But I really am enjoying looking so closely at the colors and the composition of this subject. And and this was called, what was the name again?
Mussel shell with barnacles.
Got it, mussel. I got the list by alphabet. So
Yeah, okay.
I give this a 12.
3 bikes in Davis.
Okay. I realize you guys don't, for the open category, you don't rely a lot on titles as much as you do for some of the other categories like creative. But this one really helped me because 3 bikes, and I immediately looked at the actual physical bikes, and then all of a sudden I saw the crazy flaming wheels behind it. So very clever there. I'm enjoying the composition of the 3 bikes and the colors. The only suggestion I have really is that there's on the far left side, there's a little bit of a blue, pale blue arch with a dark blue edge. And it's part of the scene, but I'm wondering how it would help the version, the focus on that particular bicycle if that were cloned out to be part of the wall color. Just a suggestion, but I think it works quite well as it is. And this is, just tell me the first word.
3.
3, right, 3 bites.
What was that again?
3 bites is, I'm looking for what I gave it a score. I gave it 11.
Thank you. I'm going to stop here just for a second, just to let people know we're trying out something new where the judge gets just the images and the titles a day ahead of time, just so, especially tonight when we have so many, so she can at least go through them and think about them and come up with some comments and the scores. But the list she got was randomized differently from what we're seeing tonight. So that's why Jane has to kind of go through and look for the titles with her notes. So just so everybody knows.
Right, and there are no titles on the screen that I'm seeing here.
Right. Oh, that's right. Yeah. This is called The Virus.
Okay, well, wonderful colors. I don't know whether this dragon was this colors and the maker made it this colors. It really doesn't matter. But to me, that's what really stands out. The title, The Virus, I don't know. Sure, it looks pretty scary. I'm just wondering, on the bottom of the left bottom corner and the right corner, there are some trees, and I'm just wondering whether that kind of jars me out of the dragon, and I pulls my eye away a little bit. So the story is all about the dragon, so I might have considered doing a version where those were cloned out, so that all the focus was on the dragon. Okay, and The Virus, a 10.
Flaming Rose.
Okay, well, obviously beautiful colors. The maker darkened the background to make the flowers stand out beautifully. Picked a very nice aperture, so that tiny apertures, so that all the petals are in focus. You can even see the tiny little hairs on one of the support leaf structures. So I really can't think of anything I would do differently other than take some more shots of the flower and see which one I like best.
Flaming.
Flaming Rose is 11.
That was 11.
Yes.
Thank you.
Beautiful Young Lady.
Okay. What I'm enjoying about this image is how the light is falling on her, and you can really see it's coming down on her face and on her chest, and that's really gives nice highlights on her hair as well. The pose is pleasant. I'm so interested in her face that I think I would consider another version. I personally tend to like tight crops, so it may just be my personal taste, but I would try also another version where right at the end of the V of her neck, the rest is cropped off. For me, the cropping helps point out what the main focus of the story is. And I don't find this particular aspect ratio or cropping unattractive. I think it works fine and the pose is nice, but I think I would also like, if it were cropped, I would have more emphasis on her face. Just something to try as an alternative. Nice catch lights in her eye too. She doesn't have the best complexion though. Maybe you could make her clone her skin a little bit to get rid of some of the artifacts in her skin. But it's not major, I'm just joking. Okay, next. Oh no, next I need the, and the first word of the title was?
Beautiful.
Beautiful, okay. Beautiful young lady is 11.
Okay. Poppies and baby blue eyes.
Okay. Well, as you can see, terrific colors. The orange and the blues are they always work well together. I like the line of the poppies coming in from the left side and moving through the frame. It really helps me to get through somewhat of a busy scene. So my eye can move well through it. I just I don't have any one particular main center of focus in this image. There is no one poppy that stands out for me, but I think that's what you've got is a very good representation of how full the field is of flowers. So let me see here. Poppies. First word was
Poppies and baby blue eyes.
poppies and baby blue eyes. 11.
Okay. Taking off to join the NSJ formation.
Okay. Well, this is not an easy shot to get because the plane and the person are very well rendered, quite sharp, a lot of good detail. And then the background has a lot of nice motion blur. So this appears to be some kind of a panning shot, which you can take a ton of them and maybe get one if you're lucky. So the colors are very attractive. At first I was wondering whether I minded the fact that the back fin on the plane on the right side was cut off. So I could argue either way, that it works this way because he's entering the frame and he just got there. Or if you really wanted, if it wasn't on your original shot, sometimes what I do when it's an open or pictorial where it image that they allow you to do all kinds of things to, I increase the canvas size. And there's lots of ways to do that. But what I tend to do is crop it and then pull the crop over on the far right side. And then I tend to take the marquee and do content aware and fill. And the algorithm sometimes goes crazy, but if you did it in a couple of chunks, like did a fill for the sky and a fill for the green area and then the fin, it might do it. But I'm not saying that you'd have to do this. I'm just saying that would be an alternative. What's particularly attractive about this one too is you get the yellow circular lines of the propeller moving. So there's a lot of good detail here. And I give this one an 11.
Serious attitude.
Great portrait of the kitty. I mean, a lot of wonderful texture in the fur, the nose. Sometimes with animals, because the nose sticks out, you have a depth of field problem, and in this image you don't. Everything is sharp and readable. See, wonderful light in the eyes, a lot of detail in the eyes and color. Pretty cat, blue eyes. Another alternative, I think this works very well, but another alternative, since it really is a portrait of the cat, is to take it out off this background and put it on plain background using layers. And maybe showing the pause. Now, I don't know whether you'd get any good information if you did content aware to show the pause. Probably not, but just an alternative. I don't find the t-shirt really that distracting. I might take the blue of the leash down a little bit because that's kind of bright, but it still reads very well, and I give Serious Attitude an 11.
Okay. Cairns overlooking the Salmon Falls Bridge.
Cairns?
Cairns, C-A-I-R-N.
Oh, got it. Thanks.
You're welcome.
If I could hear, it would be really good. Okay, well, a wonderful cairn, the pile of rocks, wonderful, lots of wonderful piles of rocks, and a nice foreground element. It looks like these are really large. The main cairn is made of really large rocks, and it's quite tall because with the bridge in the background, it almost, the scale is kind of wild. The bridge looks really tiny in comparison. It's a good exposure. There's a lot of great detail throughout the image. The grasses and the trees are well represented. A maker had a nice sky or put in a nice sky. It doesn't really matter whether it was put there or whether it was there. I think I don't mind. There's a few hot spots, bright hot spots in the clouds. I might tone down the brightness of the cloud area or the sky a little bit because it has so much punch. But other than that, I think this works pretty well, and I give it an 11.
Mesquite Dunes Hikers.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm really enjoying the panoramic format of this subject. It works perfect for this subject matter. What makes it for me are a couple of things. Mainly the people walking along the ridge of the dunes really give it a scale. And you can see how immense these landforms are, and how the panorama shows how they go on and stretch forever. It looks like a very accurate portrayal of the location. The distant mountains are in the distance, kind of faded, but they're there. I'm really also enjoying how the light falls in this image, kind of harshly on the one side of one of the ridge lines, but then how soft it is in the front on the left side. And it looks like you can clearly see the tracks where the people went up. So there's a lot of interesting texture throughout. There's a nice little bush in the lower right portion that's another little punctuation point. So I don't think I would change anything here, and I'd give it an 11.
Bodie Memorabilia.
Okay, well, Bodie's fun to shoot, but it can be very challenging because I don't think you can get inside many of these locations, inside many of these structures. And a lot of times you have to shoot through a window, and then you have to worry about reflections and how the light is bouncing around. And I find this image very appealing because there's no distracting elements in terms of lighting in here. Anything that was glary is gone or didn't occur at all. But you can really see, you really feel that 30, 40, in the 30s when Bodie was left as a ghost town, you can see all the elements that put it in that point in time. Very well rendered and nice textures. And I think all the elements in this image work well together. And I give this an 11.
In the shadow of Bernie Falls.
Find my eyes. Okay. This image to me is more arty than an actual portrayal of the falls, because to me of the tones of the blue in this image, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be an actual rendition of what you know what's out there or what you see. I'm enjoying this. Could be very busy, but I think it's been simplified fairly well. My eye tends to want to go from the lower right-hand corner and then work my way up to the top left, or vice versa. There's a nice well-lit branch in the top left corner that helps pull my eye in to the frame if I want to follow it down through the image. So I can travel around pretty well. The column in the middle is a little bright, the white light. And if I squint at the image, that's what I see first, the bright white light column of the water, and then some of the darker columns. So I'm not sure whether I tone that down or not. But as I said, I don't consider this a realistic portrayal. It's more artful, and I give this an 11.
Ritter Range facing storm clouds.
Okay. Okay. Well, fairly decent tones in the blacks and whites, or the gray tones. I don't see a real dark black. Maybe some of the trees in the lower left. So in the mountains, the tones seem kind of similar. It's different, as you can see, from the gray tones of the sky, which is nice. If the sky helps, I'm not really sure what's most important, whether it's a story about the sky or a story about the mountains, but there is more sky showing in the frame, so that seems pretty important. The one thing that I'm having trouble with is that the left side is kind of dark and stormy, and the right side is kind of bright. And I'm wondering if a little bit of dodging on some of the snow on the left mountain, and maybe dodging a little bit in the stormy areas on the left side would help pull it together, because it's almost like two separate images, the dark image on the left and the right image on the right. Just something to think about. And let's see, that was, I lost it. What was the?
Ritter
All right,
Range.
got it, thanks. 11.
Fall breeze.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Well, I'm there for me, even though this is a busy shot, it does have a center of interest, because the one plant that's coming up from the bottom on the far middle left is very sharp, where most of the rest of the image is less sharp. Well, actually, there's one flower or pod on the far lower right that's sharp as well. But for me, the center of interest is that one, because it is the sharpest one there, and everything else is blurred out. What would I do differently, if anything? I think the only other thing would be if the maker had chosen like something and maybe come in a little tighter on one of the pots, perhaps that sharp one to try and blur out, maybe take a different aperture, a wider aperture to blur out the background a little, because that would help get rid of some of the busyness. Okay, and I give it a 10.
Portrait of a sea otter.
Right. Well, the maker has clearly taken this shot to get a good portrait of the animal. There's a nice catch light in the eye. I don't know whether if you'd waited a second more, you'd be able to see him turn a little bit more towards the left to see the other eye, which would be nice, but that's okay. At least we get the profile of his nose. There's a real hot spot above his nose, and I think I would have cloned some of the fur down there so that that hot spot wasn't there. I like the fact that the maker chose to darken the background. It's a little severe, but I'm sure it gets rid of a lot of the busyness that must have been around this critter. There's a lot of good texture in the critter. Also, I do think, and this has nothing to do with the image at all, but I think this is not a sea otter. I think it's a river otter. So, and I give this portrait an 11.
Crystal Mill at Auburn. Oh, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Crystal Mill at Autumn.
Autumn, yeah, okay. Okay. A wonderful composition of a very interesting subject at a lovely time of year. I'm obviously enjoying the colors. I like the fact that you've got a choice of aperture or length of exposure, which allows the water to become kind of a little bit soft and milky, especially the waterfall. So you've done a longer exposure here, which is good because I guess not much was moving except the water, perhaps the trees, but they look pretty sharp. Great colors. For me, on my screen, it looks kind of bright. So I apologize if it's not this bright, but I think if it is on everybody else's screen bright, I would have brought the brightness down a tad and maybe even made the sky slightly less saturated or vivid. Maybe bring the vibrance down on the sky or vibrance down in the blues under saturation. It's very attractive, but it just punches a little bit much. Also, I see a little bit of artifacting in the sky. I've been using Topaz denoise for color denoising as well as just any kind of noise. And I think that would be really helpful if you did something like that, and the sky would have less noise in it. And I give this an 11.
Roadside barn.
Okay. Lots in this image to look at that are very interesting. Clearly a nice sky. Either it was a great day or you put a cool sky behind there. That's quite okay. The texture of the barn is very appealing to me. Lots of good texture there, good tones. I'm glad the maker has chosen to put a little foreground with the mustard in the image. And it's nice that the yellow mustard in the foreground is echoed by the midground yellows. The only thing I can think of is it looks a little, the whole image just looks a tad flat to me. And I don't know whether that's because it needs more contrast. The gamma needs to be raised a little bit to bring a little more black into it. But you know, it's just something to experiment with. And then there is one white cloud on that is kind of blank at the far peak of the roof. And I think I would have tried to bring a little more detail into that one cloud, because it's, if you squint, that's like a bright white blob in the middle of the picture. Okay, and I give this one an 11.
Barn, Moscow, Idaho.
Okay. Very vivid colors. I'm really enjoying the fact that there's a nice leading line of the grasses, or plants, I should say. They must be some kind of small flowering plants that come in from the left in the corner and lead me all the way through the frame to the barn. It's like underscoring the main subject. You know, comes in and underscores the barn. Although clearly the maker was taken by the sky, because the sky is more than half of the total frame. So that's interesting. Interesting sky, a little bit bright. Everything in this image is a little bright on my screen. So I think I would have brought the brightness down just a bit. It's trying to think what else. I think this image also would work if it was cropped off. There's a tree on the far left side that you see part of the tree. I think if the maker chose to crop that whole part of the tree off, you have the other clump of trees that lead into the barn. I think that would be an alternative cropping that would work, not necessarily instead of what you have, but it's just a different version. And I give this one an 11.
Away, historic Folsom Truss Bridge.
Okay, I'm really enjoying the mood that I'm getting from this image. You know, the bridge clearly is all about, it's the main subject, the main story. But having this one character, and it looks like he's got a hoodie or a hat on or something, walking down the bridge, gives a great sense of scale, and also gives another element where you can start making up all kinds of stories about this bridge and what happened on this bridge. I like the choice very much of the sepia. I guess it doesn't really matter if I like it. I think it works. The sepia tone works, gives kind of an old-fashioned feeling, and the title talked about it being historic, so I think that gives that historic feeling very well. So I give this one a 12.
Rushing Water 2.
Okay. Well, I am enjoying the fact that the maker has chosen a long shutter to get the soft, milky feeling in the water. But at the same time, you have very good definition of the rocks, particularly in the foreground. For my taste, it is a little busy because I do get the sense of the water flowing from left to right. That's very strong. But for me, the most interesting part of this image is the three rocks in the foreground and the water flowing over them. I'm really wondering how much the far right side is contributing. I think an alternate crop would be perhaps the crop at the little bit, maybe an inch or two after that last third rock, and see if you got the same sense of story from that crop. Anyhow, the water is a little bright, and again, it might be my screen. But if it truly is bright, I would try to bring that down a little. And okay, and I give this one a 10.
The Sisters in Winter.
Well, I really get the title, and it matches the images. They do look like similar little mountains or landforms. There's, as you guys know, shooting snow is not easy. And there's good definition in the snow, particularly in the left side, and then going up the first sister. There's some interesting shadow, but the shadow is kind of flat. On the second sister, you can see more detail in the shadow area in the snow, which is appealing. I'm glad that my eye can come in from the left and go through the image to the right. The sky is, there's an awful lot of sky here for my taste, and it's blank. I'm wondering if you could have done something more with the sky. There is, in Photoshop, you can do a sky replacement. So that's something to consider. Doing some burning down of the sky might help. And cropping some of it off, because really your subject is the sisters. Okay, and I give this one a 10.
Robed Street Wanderer.
Okay, for me, this is a nice portrait, a graphic image. The colors are very appealing. The blue, the complementary blues with the oranges work very well together. There's nice texture in the wall. It's nice that the maker has captured not only the person, but the shadow. That adds an extra element of interest, visual interest. And the background is plain, but there is a lot of texture and some color variation in the background. So for a seemingly simple image, there's a lot to look at. I also think this is kind of almost a square aspect ratio. I also think this would translate well to a vertical aspect ratio if the maker cut off a little bit of the left side and made it into a vertical. Not that it would be, it's just a variation, but I think both would work. Okay, and I give this an 11.
View from Stoneman Bridge.
Well, what struck me about this are two main things. The quality of light in this image and the colors. It's a wonderful, broad vista, like a beautiful painting in front of you. The tones look real, not oversaturated. There's amazing detail in everything, in reflection in the water, and how it changes from the still water to the icy water in the extreme foreground. The details throughout the snow, the rock and the waterfall. And then you have this beautiful sky where the light is coming in from the upper left corner and then flowing through the whole image. So I find this very appealing, and I can't think of anything I would do differently. Maybe one thing, if you if you could tilt up just a hair when you were there, you'd catch the top of that one tree that's on the side of the waterfall. But I think it works quite well the way it is, and I give this a 12.
Taking flight.
Okay, good capture of an egret. A lot of lovely detail in the feathers, particularly the fanned feathers on the right side of the bird. Nice detail on the feathers on the left side as well. I don't see really any significant hot spots. The maker has chosen to leave a lot of space on the right side of the frame for the bird to fly into, and that's okay. I do think you could have cropped some of that and it still would be a good story, and it would come in tighter closer up on the bird. I just noticed something now, that in occasional little spaces I see kind of extra saturated cyan. I don't know why that is. It's just occasionally here and there among the branches of the trees. But I would just check that. Maybe you desaturated it and it missed that somehow. But the alternative cropping, I said, you could lose a little from the right side and it still would be a good image. And I give this an 11.
Harvest moon stroll.
Well, I'm enjoying the lighting and in this image. I don't know whether the moon was placed in there or whether it really was there, but for me, I find it an appealing additional element. It does appear that the light is coming from the moon onto, well, there's light coming from a couple of directions because the neck of the tallest crane, sandhill crane in the background, the neck is kind of light, so there must be some light coming from the side light onto the bird. But the second bird in front that's crouched down, it doesn't have that light on it. So maybe that's something that you could dodge that neck of that second bird to make the side light appear the same. I also think that if you wanted to, you could crop off a little bit of the water and just crop it below the image, how to explain this, the kind of everything but the neck of the birds. And I think it would still work if you took like an inch or two off the bottom. I'm not saying that's what you should do. I'm just saying I think that would be an alternative format. Let's see. I think I gave these birds 12.
Simple old technology.
Okay. Well, yes, it is. A lot going on in this picture. I get the sense that, the simple old technology wasn't so, visually is not so simple. So that's an interesting contrast right there. There's I am getting the busyness and the fact that there's a lot going on in this technology. So I'm wondering whether coming in and shooting some area more up close and trying to get rid of some of the busyness, maybe a particular study on on a pulley or some of the ropes or the platform, whatever, would help alleviate some of the busyness in the image. I'm not really sure what the main subject is. For me, I guess in the way it is, I think it's the platform, the largest platform, because it's the largest dark image, dark area in the overall image. And do you really want to emphasize that platform as part of the technology? Something to think about. And I give this a 10.
The driver.
Okay. Well, a few elements in this image, and I appreciate the fact that it's minimal. You can see that where the light's coming in, obviously from the left side, because you've got the shadow on the mirror, which the shadow falls on the door. Not so much of the shadow on the door handle, but clearly light falling on the man's face. And I'm enjoying that, but I think I would have tried to wait and watch him for a while to see if he leaned out a little bit. It would be really cool if you could have gotten his eyes in the lit area instead of his nose and his mouth. So I don't know, just see, he might have been ready to rush off and you couldn't possibly do that. So, okay, and I give this one a 10.
Nice evening, thank you.
Okay, well, the maker has chosen a very interesting tree, I feel, and it fills, as you can see, it fills the frame, which is great. But what really makes this image for me, besides the sky, of course, is the fact that there's a figure, a human person there. So that really makes it. I think for me, just the tree alone, even with the nice colors in the sky, it would be kind of boring. But I like the person added, or the person is there. And of course, the title says nice evening, so the colors are obviously the sunset is main part of the story. I don't think I would do anything differently. Maybe in the far left corner, I might desaturate some of the yellow that's in the area, the hilly area in the left corner, because that's a little bright, and you have a nice area of grass line silhouette that's underlining the person in the tree, and then you have obviously the sky, but that pulls my eye away from the sky and the tree and the person. So I think I'd tone it down a little, or maybe just clone it into blue sky. I give this one a 10.
California poppies.
Okay. Well, what hits me on this one is, of course, the colors. They're vibrant, and the contrast of the complementary orange with the blues works so well. It's hard when you have a field full of flowers. I'm getting a sense that this image really tells me there's a plethora of blossoms, but it would be nice if there was some main character that I could focus on. And I'm thinking that if the maker cropped out the right side poppies and just left the big cluster that's in the foreground with the little clusters on the left side, that now I would have a main subject, which is that big cluster of poppies there. So just a suggestion. And which one was this called?
California poppies.
Thank you. Okay, I gave this one a 10.
Pine Tree Desolation Wilderness.
Okay, a nice vista around a very interesting gnarled pine tree as the main subject. I'm enjoying how the trees, both on the left side and on the right side, the mountain, come in to the main subject. So it leads my eye from both sides. It leads my eye into the main subject. The foreground is interesting with the rock formations. It makes a nice foundation for the tree, which is the star of the image. There's, as you can see, a lot of blues and greens and some grays, but I'm enjoying the orangey plants in the foreground that helps break the monotony of just blue and green. The sky is a little bit oversaturated for my taste, and I think I would have brought the cyan down a little bit in saturation. And also I noticed a sensor spot. You gotta blow this, when you do skies, you gotta blow them up at 100% at least and look for sensor spots. There's a sensor spot in the far right where the two mountains come together in the far right below the white puffy clouds. Okay, and I give this one a 10.
Lovely bird taking a break.
Hey, enjoying, wow, is this an egret? I'm not sure what it is. It's white, I think it is. I'm enjoying his posture. There's fairly decent detail in his feathers. There's nothing that's really blown out, even though it's a white bird. His claws are wonderful. There's great, in his feet, there's great texture in his feet. No catch light in his eye, but it's kind of stormy. A nice plain background, you know, a good aperture, so that's kind of quiet and blurred out. I think the only thing I like the format, the square format. The only thing I could suggest is if you squint at it, the bird and the background of the sky are almost the same value of tone. So I think I might have dodged the bird just a little bit to provide a little more contrast in tone to make the bird a little more prominent. Not a big deal, but just a suggestion. And I give this guy, so this lovely bird taking a break, that would be an 11.
Cologne Cathedral.
Okay, what struck me about this image were two things. One, the light, which is very pleasing throughout, and the angle of view. Now, some judges might get all upset because it's probably taken with a wide angle lens, and some of the columns are cattywampus, and the main column in the front is straight, but everything else is cattywampus. And actually, I don't mind that. I think that's kind of fun. And I don't know what it would look like if you went in and did some lens corrections. It might look more realistic, but it might be more boring to me, at least. So I don't think I'd change anything in this image, and I give it a 12.
Spring rain.
Okay, I had to look real close at this, and the title really helped me because I don't mind the fact that the person is in silhouette, but I couldn't quite tell what was in the person's hand. And then with the title, I realized it was probably in the process of holding or opening an umbrella. But then the umbrella is not silhouetted, so that provides me some cognitive dissonance there. Also, at the base of the person, there's a dark green swish, which doesn't blend in with any of the texture of the ground that that person's walking on. And I'm wondering if that was intentional to make a shadow, or it just seems out of place. And I'm wondering why green when the whole image is so practically monotone. I think the fact that there's so little color in this, I think I might have tried it as a monochrome, because there's just a hint of the green on the ground and the green in the plants, and a hint of sort of pinky red in the umbrella and ground. So not enough to really carry it off, in my opinion. Okay, I'll give this one a 10.
Star Lily Macro.
Okay. Well, I enjoy the fact that the maker has come in nice and tight on this flower, and that this petal that starts in the lower left leads me into the main part of the subject, which is the pistil and stamens on the flower. I do find, I realize that you have chosen an aperture that doesn't give you a lot of depth of field, and it does give you depth of field and sharpness on the main pistil and one of the little stamens in the front, but that's the only two elements in this image that's really sharp. So I think perhaps a different aperture choice would have been better to get more of the elements in focus. The other thing that I think would have helped besides that is that the main petal that's behind your main subject, the pistils and stamens, is the brightest part. And I think I would have toned that down somehow. Maybe burned it, done something to give take it into Camera Raw, which is under filters in Photoshop, and bring down the highlights. And I think that would make that a little subtler, and then the main subject would hang better. Okay, and I give this a 10.
Container ship, St. Petersburg, Alaska.
Okay. Really enjoying the light in this scene and the colors. And again, here you go with the blues and the orangey tones. Very nice orangey reds that complement. Interesting movement in the reflection of the water. Nothing's really too blown out. The maker has chosen an aperture that must be really tiny, because you've got your little stars for the lights, like maybe 20, 22, something like that on the aperture. I think that's the right amount of water for such a giant structure to be floating on. Not too much sky, gives it a little room above some of the main structure of the cranes, etc. So I can't think of anything I would do differently on this one, and I'd give it a 12.
Early spring on Table Mountain.
Okay. A very pleasing image, nice realistic colors. It's for me, the main star is the tree, and it's nice that there's a little stream running towards the tree to bring my eye in. There's a lot of interesting rock formations on the left side of the image. And I'm wondering whether you really need all of those rocks. I think an alternative cropping would be, there's a tiny little tree on the left side that I really like. It's an extra bonus. And if you cropped off and gave a little room to that little tree and then cropped off the rest of the left, that would, I think, emphasize the main subject of the big tree a little more. I think that the maker probably was so taken with all the rocks and the trees that he didn't want to lose anything in the image. But okay, and I give this one an 11.
Canada geese winter in Yellowstone.
Okay, well, it's very moody, and I'm enjoying that. I think that works. It's simple elements. You know, all the geese seem to be well rendered, pretty sharp. Getting all that atmosphere, which is nice. Don't know whether in the very close to the top of the image on the left side, there's a little white speck. I don't know whether that's needs to be cloned out or whether, I'm not sure what's causing that, but that's a little annoying, very small. There is no, as you can see, strong black in this image. And I think I might have cranked up the contrast just a little, or maybe the gamma just a little to get a little more black. Not enough to destroy the atmosphere of the soft grays, but just a little to make slightly more definition in the overall scene. And this title on this one was what?
Canada geese winter in Yellowstone.
And I give this 10.
The Raven.
Okay. Well, a really appealing portrait of the bird. The maker has come in nice and tight, and everything looks very well defined and sharp. Clearly a sharp eye and definition on the beak. Great detail on the feathers. There's a little fall off in terms of sharpness on the chest, but that doesn't bother me because there's so much wonderful definition above that to look at in the feathers. And there's a nice catch light in the eye. So very simple, plain background, nothing too bright. So I can't think of anything I would change in this one. And I give this an 11.
The Watchman, Zion National Park.
Well, the first thing that strikes me are, well, two things. It's a lovely palette of colors and a very interesting stormy sky. It either was a stormy sky or it was put in there. It makes me wonder because there's no significant shadows in the main landscape, and yet you have all this brooding sky in the back. So I'm wondering, maybe this was an HDR or something that got rid of some of the shadows. It just looks like the sky and the landscape foreground, middle ground don't match well together, but that may have been exactly what you saw. In any case, I'm really enjoying the composition and the color palette, and I give this a 11.
Snowmelt on the Merced.
Well, Caduce for the maker, coming in tight and seeing something that a lot of folks probably would think were photography worthy. It's a simple subject, but visually very interesting, I think. Obviously, you had very still water because the reflection is pretty sharp. There's good detail in the snow. You can see that the snow above on the upper right side is kind of dirty and gritty. Nothing really hot or blown out anywhere. I'm just wondering, do you need quite as much water at the very bottom? I think I might have cropped just a tad off the bottom because the story is really about all these reeds and the texture of the reeds. And I give this one an 11.
Stallion working out.
Okay, I'm really enjoying the fact that the horse is in motion and coming towards me. It adds a lot of, it's very dynamic and exciting. The fact that there's sawdust splattering up around his hooves add to the sense of his motion or her motion. Even though it's a dark stall, the maker has been able to bring out a fair amount of detail in the darks. Even though the horse is white, there's a fair amount of detail in the horse. A little bit blown out on the mane, on the right side, but maybe bringing down, going into camera raw and bringing down the highlights a bit would help. There does seem to be some texture or artifacting on the horse and a little bit in the sawdust. And here's one where I probably would have tried something like topaz noise reduction. Obviously not color noise, just regular noise and reducing. Or if you're doing it in Photoshop and you don't have that plugin in Photoshop, you go to filters, and under filters, I think there's a noise reduction choice there that would be helpful. And also another thing that I've used under filters is despeckle. That tends to help get rid of stuff as well. I give this one an 11.
Hazy night in Los Angeles.
Okay, well, I'm enjoying the expansiveness of this image and the fact that the maker has chosen to frame this cityscape with the silhouette of the trees. I think is nice. I imagine there's a lot of hazy nights in Los Angeles, but what I am having difficulty with is so many hot spots and bright spots where there is lights or white areas, like in the lower right hand corner there's 2 columns of white, bright white, glowing, that is, I think, annoying. It pulls my eye away from the main subject. There's a sign in the middle just above the silhouettes that is kind of hot, and there's some more signs below. And if you go through that, I think going into camera raw and pulling down the highlights might help. Burning might help. Also, the sky is got a few artifacts in it, and I would give it some noise reduction. Again, I like the topaz. It seems to work pretty well, but it's a plugin that you have to buy and put it into Photoshop. So I give this one a 10.
Sister and brother.
Okay. what I'm enjoying about this is the emotion, the, the, the two young people. Yes, it's a silhouette, and I don't mind that I can barely see what they have on. It's, everything's really dark. But for me, the whole story is these two young people holding hands. And then you have this lovely sky in the background. Just there is some artifacting going on a little bit in the sky, the blue part of the sky, and then particularly in the purple parts on the left side and the right side, a lot of artifacting in the purple and magenta. So this is another one that, this I would do color denoise, because that would help get rid of some of that. I give this one a 10.
Serenity at Preserve.
Okay. Nice title. It is quite serene, but I'm having a very easy time getting into the image because of all the greenery on the right side, like a wedge shape that feeds me right in. Did I say right? I meant left side. From the left side, I can get into the overall scene and follow my way down the bank, the far bank, through the image to the right side of the image. I'm also enjoying the plants on the right corner as a kind of a framing element for the water passage. It's nice that there are a couple of trees that were included, kind of like little punctuation points in the overall image. The reflections are quite attractive. The sky is pretty normal looking blue. Hang on, I think I have a dot on my screen, or maybe it's not my screen. I don't know. Make sure you blow these skies up and get rid of any dots that would be sensor marks. I think I would have cropped off a little bit off the top of the sky. I'm really enjoying the white fluffy cloud in the far right, and I would crop that 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch above it, because I don't think that adds all that much to the story. And let's see, I give this an 11.
Sadie at the Old Sugar Mill.
Okay, I'm really relating to this image because of all the texture and the quality of light in this image. Clearly you can see very strong beams of light coming in from the window and crossing diagonally across the space. But compositionally also you have these strong rebar lines on the floor that bring you the grid lines right into where the far part of the building where Sadie is seated. I'm taking that Sadie is the main subject, but the building is a very strong subject. They're both important. And Sadie is like the bonus point. If Sadie weren't in this image, it might be a little boring, but following the lines down to her in the image, it really is kind of a treasure hunt. The texture in the image is wonderful. The tones have nice variation. And I already mentioned the quality of light. So I give a 12 to Sadie.
California Poppy, April 2021.
Poppy or poppies?
Poppy.
Singular.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. What I'm really enjoying about this are twofold. the light and the translucent quality of the petals and the colors. You have lovely yellows and oranges, and yet the background is contrasty, but in a pleasant way, blending into those purples. You've got the greens. So the background and foreground colors really set off the orange flower, orange yellow flower. There's good texture in the foreground petals. You can see the lines in it. It fades away. It doesn't bother me that the rear two petals are not tack sharp. It's a simple image, a simple subject, but there's a lot to look at and enjoy. The variations of color, and your eye can enjoy following the petal, the edges of the petal. The first two petals are very sharp, and that's fun to play with as well. So I give this an 11.
Screws Up,
Great title.
or else it screws up. I'm not sure how the
It's-
artist wanted to be said.
Both work.
Yeah,
I love the title, and it works well with the image. And I think the image has a lot to offer too. I think it's very well done. Great exposure. Fantastic colors. I can't imagine that you found screws those colors, but if you did, I want to buy some. If not, I think you've done a great job of colorizing them. The background is very simple, as you can see, but it's not flat or static. You have a nice darker area at the top, and then it kind of surrounds the pile of screws and then fades off in the corners. And that feels like the light is coming in from the front and putting little glints of light on these screws. So puts the background in shadow. Simple subject, but I think it's very effective, and I give it a 12.
Grand Canyon Sunset Photo Op.
Okay, Grand Canyon. I'm really enjoying the colors in this image. It's not easy to get a clear shot with good colors of the Grand Canyon. A lot of times it's kind of hazy, and this is very well portrayed. It's an extra bonus, I think, that the people and the railing are there in silhouette. That gives a nice foreground element across the bottom. You have the little tree, well, the tree also next to the people, and then there's another tree over here. So that's all part of like framing elements for the magnificence of the rock formations. The only thing I'm wondering, it probably is straight, but because there's more space, sky space on the between the sky and the top of the sky and the rocks on the left side versus the right side, I think I would have rotated the image just a hair by lifting up the left corner and pulling down the right corner, just to kind of feels like I'm leaning just a little bit. It's not real critical. And I give this an 11.
Somewhere in Iowa.
Okay, well, I'm really enjoying the corn stalks. At least I think they're corn. Could be wheat, but I mean, I get the feeling that I'm in the Great Plains, and there's a lot of growing and farming going on here. And this really, it's simple with a lot of plant material, and then just part of a structure, very interesting, sticking out. I don't think having that much sky adds that much to this image. Although I think having that sky probably helps to say that you're in the Great Plains and there's not a lot out there but plants and sky. I get that. But I think I would have cropped it and made this more of a panorama. Also, the roof is a little, it's not really hot, but there's not much going on with it. And I might have tried just to see if I could get a little more texture on the roof. I don't know. It's probably a metal roof, and maybe it's reflecting the sun, but it's a little plain. Okay, and I give this one a 10.
Okay, that's the last of the open images.
Whew,
Take a
okay,
deep breath. I know it. A lot of work.
getting tongue-tied here, sorry.
Yeah, Doug, I have 8 12s.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so Jane,
Yes,
we'll flip through the 8 that have the 12s for you to
Okay.
select. If you
Sure.
want the titles, just let me know.
no,
Otherwise,
I've got them in front of me.
oh, okay. You don't really need them, but whatever.
Right, right.
And we can go through these as long as, many times as you need, or,
No, I'm good. I'm
Okay.
glad I was able to preview. Are we ready?
yes.
Okay. Well, I have to pick one according
Right.
to the rules, but I really have 2.
Oh, well,
But okay, because
well, which 2 are they? And we can flip back and forth between
yeah,
those 2.
okay. If I had to pick one without the 2, it's View from Stoneman Bridge.
View from Stoneman Bridge. Okay.
It's just, for me, it's just like a beautiful painting from a master.
And it is. Okay, so that was View from Stoneman Bridge. I know it was Doug Arnold. I can't find it on my list. Because mine aren't in alphabetical order. Let me look at, okay. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so Doug Arnold, View from Stoneman Bridge. So that's the one you select for
Yes,
13.
and if you, I have to tell you my runner-up though.
Okay,
My runner-up is Sadie at the Old Sugar Mill.
okay.
I fell in love with Sadie and the quality of light and texture in this.
Okay, Sadie at the Old Sugar Mill is by Don Goldman.
Oh,
So then we'll go through the other 12s from the beginning, just so this one, Mussel Shell with Barnacles, is Christian Lyda Lynch.
mhm.
What? What are we? Okay, Doug, are you there?
Sorry, that's me.
Oh, that's you.
Yeah, can't avoid it. Okay, will you go to the next one?
Yeah, that one is Away, Historic Folsom Truss Bridge. That's Hayata Takashita. And then Harvest Moon Stroll is Lucille Von Omer. Oh, Lucille, pardon me if I mispronounce your name. Van Omering. Cologne Cathedral is Glenn Cunningham. Container Ship in St. Petersburg, Alaska is Gary Kaywood. And Screws Up is also Don Goldman. So congratulations to our honors winners and our image of the night. So Jane, we're going to take, we're running longer than I expected.
Uh-oh.
But no, we're fine. It's you. But since we have 19 of the creative images, but why don't we take a short, like 5-minute break? Would that work?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Oh, okay, just to
I
get
mean,
up.
or even less. I mean, all I'm gonna do is go get some more water. to drink.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take a few minute break then and we'll get rolling in with the creative images.
Sounds good. I'll be back
Okay.
in a second.
So Doug and Jane, I'm going to just defer to you two whenever you're ready to start.
Okay, I'm ready.
I'm
Okay,
ready
Doug,
too.
you ready?
Okay. So again, we'll flip through the 19 images first and then go back and I'll do the titles for you.
Excellent.
Okay, that's all.
Okay,
Okay,
Glow family.
okay. Really enjoying the creativity of this image. The people, the glowing people. I don't know how you did that, but it's very effective. Their stances are really great. The background really shows them off very well. I'm not sure why they have the cranes flying in the upper right corner. That kind of takes me away from the otherworldliness of these glow people, but it's not a big deal. There is one little element on the left side in the orangey sky that there's a dark piece that I think I would have cleaned out or content awared out, because that just doesn't seem to add anything to the story. But I do think this is very creative, and I would change it. And let's see, what's mine? I
Glow.
gave it 12.
Spectral presence.
Another one that works well in the creative category. The elements are very interesting that are combined, kind of like the Stonehenge pieces with the sky, and then this interesting, almost mythical druid face coming out of the right-hand corner. I do find the lighting a little strange though, because we have the sky and then the grass is it's lit with sunlight. So that gives me a little bit of cognitive dissonance. I guess maybe I would have toned down the green and made the grass darker to see if it could blend in a little better. But I'm really enjoying the creativity of the combination of these elements. Let's see, what was the title again?
Spectral presence.
That's an 11.
11.
Yes.
Imperial grillscape.
Okay. Well, clearly this grill has been some kind of filter has been put on it, or liquefy or something. I'm finding the strong curved line in the center kind of bisecting the image, and I bounce between the red vertical lines and the white and black sort of vertical lines. But then for me, the center of interest is also this number 8, and that's kind of falling off towards the left edge. And my eye keeps going to that number 8. So I'm bouncing all around this, and I don't seem to have a main focal point. I think maybe number 8 should have been the main subject, and we could have cropped out a lot of the rest of the image. And I give this 10.
Dark falls.
I'm enjoying the texture in the water itself, as well as the rocks. I know you mentioned the titles are a little bit more meaningful and creative than in the open. But the title is Dark Falls, and it's dark around the falls, but the falls itself are extremely bright. So I think I would have modified the title a little bit somehow. Bright Falls, or Surrounded by Darkness. Um, it's a simple subject, and I'm finding the texture on the left side not matching on the right side. So it's kind of busy as well. I'm not sure how you would simplify it, but I definitely would turn down the brightness of the falls a little bit. This is, I'm giving this a 10. Are you guys there?
Yeah, I am. Doug?
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, next, that one's a 10.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I'll repeat.
California poppies in watercolor mode.
Okay. On this one, I'm kind of relying more on the title because I can see that there's been a filter applied to it, and the title talks about watercolor mode, but it almost still looks like a realistic image to me. For a creative category, I'm not sure there's been enough done to it to take it out of its realistic portrayal. But I like the colors. And of course, this could fit in a tutorial as well. I mean, open. I give this one a 10.
Freedom's Salute.
Freedom salute. Okay, I'm really enjoying the detail in the skyline, and the fact that you have these planes flying in with the great smoke. I think that the planes and the sky and the structures, the buildings blend pretty well. So it's, you probably did this in layers or something, but I think it works quite well. The only thing I would suggest, maybe you don't need all that sky above the planes, maybe change the aspect ratio. I don't know. It works the way it is, and I give this 11.
Entrance to Unknown.
Okay. What works on this one for me is the very strong diagonals of the bridge and the flooring horizontals that recede and diminish into the background. I'm very glad that the maker put a person back there, because it gives me something to look at the end of this structure. But I'm not sure that all the crazy colors really add a whole lot to this image. It makes it extra busy. And I guess it really doesn't matter that there has to make any sense about a light source, but I can't figure out where the light is coming from, because there's light coming down from the foreground, but then there's parts of light coming in from the side. So it's hard to put all the elements together to make them hang. I give this a 10.
Scaling the Galactic Fortress.
Okay. Well, clearly this is done with layers or something like that, rather than just a straight shot. And for me, I find it very effective. I'm really enjoying the angle of view of the structure and the dynamic diagonal lines of how this structure looms up into the sky. And the maker has picked a lovely sky and positioned the most interesting part of this, the Milky Way, and most colorful part of the sky right in the center of the structure. So that, for me, works very nicely compositionally. And then there's this guy hanging on here, which that's, you can make up all kinds of stories about that. And he's in a dark area, so it all seems to hang pretty well. All these elements hang well together. The fact that he's in a dark area, you probably didn't need to do anything like a drop shadow here because he's already in a dark area. So I give this one a 12.
Safe harbor.
Okay. I find this a very appealing image, but I'm looking for what has been manipulated, and the only thing I can see is maybe the light was put in there. It's a bit realistic for me to feel that it works very well in the creative category. Also, I think if it's about a safe harbor, you're not really looking at a harbor. There's a lot of sky and a lot of ocean or water on the left side. I think I would have cropped in on that. And think that somehow there needs to be more elements that make it a little more creative. Okay, let's see, safe harbor is a 10.
Okay. Sky is the limit.
Okay, well, probably done with layers. Clearly, this dancing couple probably in real life was not dancing on this building, and that makes it creative. You've combined a bunch of elements. I do find, I mean, it makes sense that they're dancing and there's motion blur on, especially on the woman, but I do find it visually distracting that nothing on the people are really sharp. Maybe her one shoe is sharp, but his face isn't sharp. And I realize it's creative and you want some motion blur, but it's just, that part is just not working for me. Also, the structure is a little tilted. So I would have bumped that up a little bit and straightened it out. I like the concept. I like the fact that the makers put clouds and they're dancing on the structure. Good concept, but I think it just needs some work in execution. And I give this a 9.
The hidden life of trees.
Well, the title and the image match really well, and it's very, I find it very clever. I love all the facial drawings within the trees, the tree branches, and the contrast of that fun and fantasy. That contrasts nicely with the little woodpecker, which is portrayed very realistically on the right-hand branch. So I don't think I would change anything. I might, it's a little quiet, it's a little subtle. I might try a little saturation, but I don't, it's not necessary. I think it works well in a creative fashion the way it is. Let's see, hidden life of trees. What's it? I give this a 12.
Bodhi, Starry Night.
Okay, well, I'm appreciating the fact that the title and the way this image has been manipulated or the filter that's been put on it match. It does have kind of a starry night feeling. There's some things that make me wonder though. There's some, as you can see, some light on the truck and some light in the structures, inside the structures. And okay, maybe there's some electrical lights in the structures, but why is there light inside the truck? Maybe doors open. I don't know. But I'm just trying to find where the source of light is coming for some of these, because if there's no source of light in the sky. So I like the way the images are put together and the treatment, but there's just tad cognitive dissonance for me in terms of having everything hang together. And the name was
Bodie.
Bodhi, is an 11.
Abstract reflection.
Okay. Well, I'm really enjoying the colors in this image. For me, my eye just kind of goes from the left to the right, because that's the way you read here, left to right. And there's no one place for my eye to rest or make the main character of this image. So it's more of a pattern shot. In fact, if I squint at it, the place my eye goes to first is right in the more or less the center of the image. There's a white blob that's a little hot, and I don't think that's the main subject. So I think maybe that should have been cloned or somehow darkened, but there needs to be something that sticks out that makes it the main, makes a main subject within this mass of reflections. And I give this a 10.
I'm sorry, what was that?
10.
10.
Thank you.
Dorothy's house.
Okay. A really interesting combination of elements. The clouds are wonderful. I like the fact that the clouds go behind and in front of the house. The house itself is a very interesting structure with lots of interesting subtle tones and textures in the wood patterns and on the roofing material. The person standing in the field is a great addition and allows me to go from looking at her in the left-hand corner to the main subject. I noticed that the clouds do come down and right near Dorothy or whomever, behind the foreground. And so I guess what I'm wondering is the foreground too bright? Or is the clouds so far away that it makes sense? Again, this is kind of a lighting thing. Where's the light coming from? And what about shadows? There's no shadows in the grassy areas. So I think the elements work fairly well together, but I'm having a little trouble with the clouds and house, which work beautifully together, put next to the grass. Dorothy's house, I give an 11.
The crypt.
Well, clearly this has been manipulated with some kind of texture or filter. I find that it works reasonably well with this subject matter. It's a little busy, but I think it blends well. I'm enjoying the light qualities in this image, and I think that's probably from the original source material. The combination of adding the flower, I think works. I can see on the flower that there's some lighter areas on the petals, so I get the sense that there's light coming in from the right side of the image and flowing into the structure and also onto the flower. So I can't think of anything else that I would do differently. The crypt. I give this image an 11.
Radiating arcs.
A simple subject matter, but very effective in my opinion, with, you know, with dynamic lines and so forth. A nice array of colors, particularly enjoying how the light is coming in from the upper right and very softly raking across the whole image. So I don't think I would change anything, and I give this an 11.
The Gull and the Lighthouse.
An interesting combination of elements. Clearly, there's been a treatment put on, or a filter put on this image. You can clearly see it in the sky. Does it work? Well, it takes it out of, it makes it non-realistic, and for that, I think it does work. Bring it into the creative frame. It brings it more into the painterly realm, some kind of treatment or brush stroke. Nice tones in the rocks. The bird, I guess the bird is flying in the foreground. It's really hard to see where the light is coming from, but if you look at the lighthouse tower, the light appears to be coming in from the left side. And I guess the bird has light on him on the left side as well. So I give this one an 11.
Spiral Mother Lode.
Okay, well, clearly I have no clue what the source image was, and that's not important because this has been manipulated quite a bit into with some kind of filter or whatever, and a lot of grays, a little bit of yellow. I don't know. It's so simple, and the lines go in. The color palette is kind of spare. I look at it and it doesn't really hold my interest for very long. So I think it needs some other element to bring me more into the center, something that's really contrasting. On this one, what was that one?
Spiral Mother.
Okay, I give this one a 10.
Ghost Squadron over London.
Okay. I'm really enjoying the fact that the title and the image match very well. Clearly, you can see this is London from the structures. You have Big Ben and Parliament, but the sky is really ominous, and then you have all these planes. So I guess from the title, it's a ghost squadron, which means that it's from the past. And it gives me a really strong sense of World War II. And so I'm liking that. I like the way these elements work. I think the sky and the planes and the buildings blend together quite well. And I give this a 12.
Okay. Okay, that was the last one, and we have 4 that have 12s. Is
Okay.
that what you have, Doug?
Yes, I have 4.
Okay, alrighty.
So there's the Glow family,
Mhm.
Scaling the Galactic Fortress, The Hidden Life of Trees, and the Ghost Squadron over London.
And I'm ready to tell you who
Okay.
number 1 is.
Sure.
Scaling the Galactic Fortress.
Okay. That is by Lucille Van Ammering. Okay, then this Glow family is Truman Holtzclaw. The Hidden Life of Trees, Jan Lightfoot.
Ah.
And Ghost Squadron over London, Doug Arnold. So congratulations to all of you honors winners. And thank you, Jane, for all your time and going through all of these images tonight. And I thought you really gave a lot of helpful feedback on the images. I know I learned a lot.
Really? Oh, well, thank you so much. I wanted to add one other note. I am not very good with compositing, layers and masking and all that stuff. And because of that, because I've been judging, I found out that Charlie Ginsberg, who is, I think he's in Millbrae, kind of get. Anyhow, it's in one of the clubs. He's given a class on compositing. And so I muscled the Contra Costa folks to see if they would be willing to have Charlie do this class. It's not a one-time class. It's an 8-week long, very active class that you have to do homework in. But I just wanted to let you guys know, because you're pretty good with compositing. But some of the things that he pointed out from a Scott Kelby Photoshop video on Kelby 1 2020, when he talks about compositing, he talks about matching the direction of light, matching the tone of the background, hiding edge fringing if you've done selections, adding shadows, and then unifying the elements into a single image and that's called color grading. So I just thought I'd share that with you. Some of us are becoming painfully aware of all these things.
Okay. All right. It looks like we've come to the end of our evening. And again, I thank you for your time and everybody who participated. And I will obviously not be getting the scores out tonight, but I will work on that tomorrow. So everybody should be getting an email with everything tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
Keep safe.
Thanks. Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Right.
Doug, do you need to talk to me at all about anything, or should I
No,
just?
I'm just
Okay.
gonna go ahead and end the
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay.
Unless somebody has something.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, good night.
Okay. Good night.